Hello friends! As some of you may know, I had jury duty a few weeks ago, and today I'm going to share with you my jury duty experience because before my experience I was very nervous, I didn't know what to expect, and I spent, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes or so online looking up YouTube videos so that I would know what to expect. So here we go. So let's start off when I found out that I got jury duty. I was in Seattle, which isn't even where I'm from. I'm from Oregon and I live in Oregon, and I get a call from my stepmom and she says, oh, you just got a letter in the mail. It's from like the government or whatever, whoever it was from. I didn't have the physical letter, but I remember her saying something along the lines that it was from the government. She's like, do you want me to open it right now? And I was like, yeah, like I have no idea what it is. And she opens it, and before she opened it I had a feeling that it's probably jury duty, but at the same time I was like, okay, I'm only 19, what are the odds? Like, a ton of people in my family who are older than me have not had to experience or go through jury duty. So even though I kind of suspected it, I was like, okay, I don't know what it is, like just open it. So she opens it, and of course I have jury duty. I couldn't really get out of it without lying, and at first I was like, okay, I'll go on the website and just say I'm out of town and basically lie to the government, which isn't very good. But then I talked to a few people and they were like, well, why don't you want to go? And I was like, okay, I mean, I guess I have nothing better to do with my life. So the day of jury duty, on Thursday morning, I got up super early. I drove there and I was on time, and there was already a long line forming out the door. Once I went through security, I basically filled out paper saying if I was employed or not, because they sometimes pay people if they're eligible. The questionnaire that was separate from the employment paper basically was just to get a feel of what kind of person you are, and there were only like 10 questions, and I don't really know how they narrow the paperwork down because they're pretty like general questions. However, they basically choose out of the many people that are there with you who is going to be selected to go to be in the next group of people, and then the next group of people to basically see who is going to serve on jury duty officially in different trials. So after we filled out the paperwork, we just kept waiting, and there was a lot of waiting involved in this process. And there were probably a little over 200 people at the courthouse waiting to see if they would have to serve that day. And the first thing we actually did was we watched a 20-minute YouTube video specific to the Oregon courthouse that I went to, and it was basically informing us on what the process is like and what we'll have to go through that day if you are chosen. And it actually got me more excited about the trials if I was chosen, because I was like, you know, this is great. Like, this is one of the many opportunities I get as a citizen since I'm able to participate and give my opinion for whether or not someone is guilty or not guilty. After the video, the main woman who was in charge played a movie for us as we were waiting for more information, and originally there were only 4 trials that day. Luckily there were no grand jury trials, so no one would be staying for like weeks and weeks for one specific trial. So they were all trials, she said, that would last a day or so. Like, it was very minimal, and that was good news. So everyone was excited about that. As we continued to wait, she would come up to the front of the room and tell us different announcements she had, like as she heard them from other people. And the first announcement was she was like, oh, by the way, good news, we have gone down from 4 trials to 3 trials now. Once I hear anything else, I get back to you. We waited a little bit longer, and she goes, okay, we went from 3 trials to 2 trials, and everyone's happy. She comes up a little bit later, and she's like, okay, we went from 2 trials to 1 trial. And I was thinking like, okay, this is literally gonna go to 0 trials and we're all gonna go home, and like, this is pretty cool. But at the same time, I was like, I was hoping I would get chosen, but I was also like, I kind of want to go home, because I'd been there for probably at least 4 hours at this point, just waiting to hear if I would even make it in the next group of people. When she originally announced that there was only 1 more trial left, there was this guy in front of me who was talking to this girl, and he was like talking to her about, oh my gosh, there's only 1 trial left, like, we're not gonna get chosen, what are the odds? And when I heard him say that, I was like, okay, this guy's gonna get chosen. We're basically waiting for the people who work with the judge to figure out which 20 people out of the 200 people there they would choose. They come by and they list off a few people, and of course the guy that was sitting in front of me gets chosen. So literally 20 people out of the 200, the guy who was like, oh my god, like, I'm probably not gonna be chosen, like, he gets chosen. I was like, I saw that coming. And then they take a break, like after 6 people, they take a pause, they're explaining a little bit of things to us, like how the process is gonna go and like where people need to go stand if their number is called. And I'm thinking at this point, like, I'm probably going to get chosen. And so after their little pause, guess what? I was chosen. Like, I was literally the first number they called, and so I go stand in line and we just wait until they finish calling off the 20 people. Eventually we ended up walking to the courtroom. The first 6 people in line immediately go into the juror box, and then the rest of the people, the 14 other people, go into the audience, who sits behind the lawyers facing the judge. The first thing that happens is the judge told us what the case was. Mine had to deal with domestic violence and abuse. And we basically were asked if we could stay because he wanted to know if anyone had been personally affected who would be biased towards their decision at the end of the day. Like, everybody decided to stay. And so after that, the lawyers made their introductions. They asked us questions, and we weren't necessarily required to answer the questions. They were very general and broad questions, just kind of getting to know like the feel of the room and who was in it. Sometimes the lawyers would point out specific people and they'd be like, hey, like, have you experienced this? Like, what is your opinion on this? And other times they'd be like, okay, who has been affected? Those people raise their hands, and then they call out the people who had raised their hands to tell the rest of the people in the room about their experience, so that we get to know who they are and see if they would kind of be qualified. They ask many more times who is biased, and after hearing more information, everybody kind of starts to come out of their comfort zone and speak up. And one of the guys was like, honestly, I don't want to be here, like, I really want to go home, so I think I just want to throw that out there. And so he ended up leaving because it was clear he didn't want to be there. He probably wouldn't have cared about the process like he should have. So I guess if you want to get out of it that way, be honest. But I guess I didn't really care because I was kind of curious, and I was like, you know, this would be interesting to witness and have a say in and figure out who, if the person in the trial was proven to be guilty. After that, they had the process of dismissing, where the lawyers would write down the name of someone in the juror box, so out of the 6 people that they didn't want to keep there for the trial. And I assume they knew our names because they kept us in a specific order. So then they would take those 2 papers, and then the person who worked with the judge would show the other lawyer what one of them said, and then they would like approve, nod their head, give it to the judge, and then the judge would announce one person from the juror box to leave. And they repeatedly said like, oh, don't feel bad if you're not chosen, because we specifically choose people who would be good for this one trial. And I was kind of like nervous, and I was excited because I hadn't made it to the juror box yet. So I was like, okay, like, they might not get to me, whatever. And they keep going one by one. Eventually they get to these 6 people who are pretty solid choices. And then I didn't know that this was gonna happen, but they were basically like, okay, like, the rest of you are dismissed. And they were like, you guys can stay and watch the trial if you want, or you can go home. And I was like low-key like, okay, I would want to stay here and watch how it ends. But at the same time, I was like, okay, I don't really want to sit here alone. Maybe if I had a friend here with me. But that wasn't the case, so I got up along with everyone else. Like, no one in the audience stayed because no one wanted to be there. Overall, the experience wasn't that bad. It was actually pretty exciting and interesting because you don't experience that every day. And it definitely is something that people should take advantage of and shouldn't complain about when they get summoned. And I definitely in the future am not going to complain if I get summoned unless like there's like an emergency or it's like actually ruining plans. But you can always get out of it if your excuse is valid online. You can fill out the form and try to get out of it. But honestly, I would say take advantage of it if you find yourself to be a decent human being, so that you have a say in if people are guilty or not, and so that the trials remain fair, and so that you get your voice out there. Thank you for watching this video. I hope this helped you with your experience. If you have any questions, ask me down below and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. And subscribe.